I'll call this meeting to order. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually, is being recorded, and will be published on a publicly accessible website. Council CAO additions. I have none. Council additions. Hearing none. CAO additions.
Yes, Mayor. I have two. One for a meeting with virtual meeting with Northern Health, and a second for a letter of support that's been requested from Port Nelson First Nation.
Thank you. Can I get a motion, please, to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councillor Dolan, seconded by Councillor Souls. All those in favor? Carried.
Aye.
Thank you. Public hearing, August 10th, 2020. These are minutes, I take it, Ms. McIver? Okay. I'm sorry, it says adoption of minutes. Can I get a motion then to adopt the minutes of the public hearing August 10th, the Special Regional Council September 10th, the Special Regional Council September the 14th, Regional Council September the 14th, Regional Council or Special Regional Council September 24th, and Special Regional Council October 1st.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Roper. Seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? Carried. Public comment period. Is there any comment on today's agenda from the public? Hearing none. Business arising. Northern Rockies Regional Rec Center operations update. We've dealt with that in the special regional council meeting. Fort Nelson and District Chamber of Commerce email poll fee waiver request and ratification. The Chamber of Commerce request is in front of you that we waive the fees for the Phoenix Theatre for the all candidates meeting. An email poll was conducted and that was approved. So I guess I will ask for a motion to ratify that.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Councillor Gerwing, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All those in favor? Carried. At this point, perhaps we should discuss the grant and aid that the Chamber of Commerce has for the trade show. There was $1,000 grant and aid for the trade show, and they have not utilized it all. We're going to utilize part of that for this grant and aid for this all candidates meeting, and there's a balance due. And in the email poll, it asked if what our preference was to do with that $600 odd for that grant and aid that they received. Ms. Vanderstein, you said that there were some sunk costs in this related to the trade show. Could you elaborate on that, please?
So some of the costs that we had were staff time in organizing the trade show because we were well into that process, as well as credit card processing, both for the applications we had already received and for refunding all those applications. So I looked at my numbers, and we're sitting right around $1,100 for those costs, which are actual costs. And then of course there's the revenue loss, which based on 2019, it wasn't a great year for the trade show to begin with, but we lost about $7,000 in revenue, assuming that we would have done about the same this year.
So your loss from having to cancel the trade show, your sunk costs about $1,100, and the balance on the grant and aid is $600. Any comments, councillors? Councillor Gerwing.
So when I made that motion, I thought when we were ratifying that, I thought my motion was for option C, which was to waive the grant and aid policy and approve a grant and aid of $450 plus applicable taxes to cover the cost of the Phoenix Theatre rental for a provincial all candidates forum, and release the 2020 grant and aid of $1,000 in cash to the Chamber of Commerce. So that's what I thought I was doing.
Okay. Any other comments, councillors? Mr. Barry.
Right, just to clarify, so what had happened when the email ratification went out, there was a consensus of council to waive the fees. However, there was varying responses when it came to some of the options. So I think so the reason for discussion, I think it's good to bring that up is the waiving the fees is good. It's what approaches council wish to, which options council wish to pick from that process. So.
Councillor Gerwin.
The Chamber of Commerce always has an option to apply for the grant and aid, right? As all not-for-profits can in the community, right? It doesn't have to be tied to any one project or any one loss. They can just fill in an application like the Snowmobile Club could, or the Literacy Society for the $1,000, and they get to do that on a yearly basis, right? That's what we're talking about here with this $1,000. It's the regular grant and aid. Am I confused?
Yeah,
Right?
no. So earlier this year, the chamber submitted their application. It was approved in the amount of $1,000. It would have been in kind towards rental fees at the rec center associated with the trade show.
Right.
But then the trade show was canceled. Obviously, there were costs incurred. Bev indicated that it was her intention before the end of the year to come before council and ask for a redemption of that in cash to put towards the sunk costs. So last year, when there was the federal all candidates forum and a similar request came to council to waive the Phoenix Theatre fees, it was acknowledged that the Phoenix Theatre is not an NRM facility. So we can't just waive a fee that's not our own. So the best approach to that was to waive the grant aid policy and approve an additional $450 to the chamber to cover the cost of the fee.
Right. Okay.
So those are kind of the options. So based on last year's considerations, that fee waiver came out of our grant and aid budget based on council's decision. So what was kind of agreed to in principle was that council waive the fee or allocate $450 from the grant and aid budget to cover the cost of the Phoenix fee for this all candidates forum. But then the question remains what to do with the balance. And so council could waive their policy and still approve the original $1,000 to the chamber to cover the sunk costs that Bev described, or just redeem the balance basically, so that it would be the $1,000, 450 of which would be a grant and aid to the theater, and then the balance to the chamber based on their original application.
Councillor Gerwin.
Because the chamber hosts the all candidates forum as a community service. It isn't necessarily an event that benefits the chamber in any way. They do it, I believe, because nobody else is doing it. And if they didn't step forward and doing it, we could not possibly have an all candidates forum. So I would hate to see them be penalized for that in terms of reducing their grant and aid.
Councillor Roper.
So what I understand, in previous years, they had the grant and aid for the rec center, and then the Phoenix Theater was the addition to that. So I would like to treat those separately and give them the balance for the sunk costs of the $1,000, and then also waive the grant and aid policy for the Phoenix Theater rental. That gives them the best value because they had those sunken costs.
Okay, so then my motion earlier covers the waiving the fee for the $450 for the Phoenix Theater. So we've got that one covered, right? So now we just need a motion to, okay.
Councillor Penny, Councillor Andrews, any comments? Very well. A motion then, Councillor Gerwin?
Yeah, I would make that motion.
Do I have a seconder for that?
Second that.
Moved by Councillor Gerwin, seconded by Councillor Roper. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Proclamations. Northern Rockies Regional Municipality Proclamation Small Business Week, October 18th to the 24th. Whereas the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality celebrates our local businesses and the contribution they make to our local economy and community, and whereas small business is defined as having fewer than 50 employees and makes up 98% of all BC businesses, whereas small businesses contribute positively to the local economy by supplying jobs and generating tax revenue, and whereas a strong local business community is a key driver of our local economic prosperity. And whereas a strong local business community creates jobs and opportunities for residents of the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality and supports community growth. Whereas the Fort Nelson and District Chamber of Commerce, along with other advocacy groups, public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed Canadian Small Business Week. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Gary Foster, do hereby proclaim the week of October 18th to 24th, 2020, a Small Business Week in the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality.
Right on. Yeah. Yay, small business. I heard that Amazon's hiring.
Yay, Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Councillor Penny and Councillor Andrews, for your virtual clapping. Reports, bylaws, administration report number 65, corporate sustainability policy. Mr. Barry.
Krista's here to
I'm
speak
sorry?
to that one, so.
Ms. Vandersteen, please go ahead.
Hello, Mayor and Council. So this Admin 65 is just an information update for you. We started 2020 off strong with the sustainability policy. We've had quite a bit of discussions internally and amongst all the different departments and some research, and then it kind of slid away. So I wanted to bring back a report identifying that work is being done and that we're kind of kicking it back up again. Due to COVID-19, some of the things that we had previously established in the first quarter of the year don't really fit anymore. Just with meals, we can't be looking at bulk catering and things like that anymore. So there's just some changes to the world and operations. So we'd like to take some time to go back to all of our different departments before bringing a draft policy to you. So that's where we're at. Is there any questions?
Councillors, any questions? Thank you, Ms. Vandersteen, for bringing that forward to us. We'll move on to admin report number 66, Northern Development Initiative Trust. Ms. Vandersteen.
Yeah, so Northern Development Initiative Trust started doing some community consultations last summer, so the summer of 2019. They did do a meeting here, and it seems like they really took that information back to their board, and they came out and just launched Trust 2020, which includes the removal of a couple old programs, but the addition of 6 new ones. So those are outlined in the admin report, and everything that was previously accepted is still accepted, just within the different program headings, and it opens up a lot more than what was previously offered.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Gerling.
Are you working with our not-for-profits in the community to get this word out on the new programs, or?
Yeah, so we have, we've mentioned it in as many places as we can think of, and including the community roundtable.
Any other questions, councillors? Ms. Vandersteen, I understand the museum is looking at doing an addition to the museum. Are they going to qualify for some assistance through NDIT?
I believe so, and Kim and I have been working together on a grant application for that, for this intake, which is the end of the month. So.
Thank you. No other questions. We'll move on to admin report number 67. Ms. Vandersteen, the Charge North update.
Yeah, so again, first quarter of 2020, this came to Regional Council and was decided to join this group called Charge North. They have quite a bit of skills and knowledge in the electric vehicle charging world. And we're accessing a few different grants, one being NDIT, as well as the Clean BC through the province. And they were hoping to have that announcement of funding earlier in the year, but it just came in September. So they've updated us with some new timelines. So we should have our charging station here in Fort Nelson by the end of fall next year.
Any questions? Very well. Thank you very much. I tried reaching out to Tesla, but I didn't receive a reply back. I thought perhaps I could interest Mr. Musk in putting in a charging station in the Northern Rockies, but I guess he has other things to do.
Does it have a layaway plan?
I think he was too busy flying rockets to worry much about our charging problems, but I might take a different run at him here. So, very well. Administration report number 68, Northeast BC Agriculture Labor Market Study Advisory Panel. They're looking for a representative on an advisory panel. So where we would find such a person.
Oh, farm labor. Oh, yeah, well, I know something like that.
Mr. Gilbert, did you want to speak to this? It has.
Mike's on the call, so it's, I can speak just briefly to this one. It's the admin report is relatively self-explanatory. Northern Lights College is leading the study to identify labor market gaps in the agriculture and agri-food industry, specifically in the Northeast. The Northern Rockies NRM has been approached by the study organizers to have some representation in that, which includes a council representative. And so this is why it's in front of council to see if council's interested to have a council representative as part of that study, and if so, which councillor you would like that to be.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Goring.
Do we know who else is going to be on this panel?
Outside of the NRM, you mean, or I don't know. I'm not sure if we've made it that far in terms of information. Sorry.
Okay, well,
I can, what I'll do for council is, since Mike's absence, he's been dealing with specifically, I can reach out to Mike and just see if there's any, if we do know from that perspective. He might know.
Since Councillor Souls has been a great crusader for agriculture in the Northern Rockies, I would suggest that we recommend that I would recommend Councillor Souls be appointed to this board. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Moved by Gary Foster, seconded by Councillor Dolan. All those in favor? Carried. Congratulations, Councillor Souls. It was a squeaker, I know.
No, but it's actually very fascinating because you know that the agricultural focus or presence in the Northern Rockies is relatively small. And yet I can assure you that the whole discussions we've been having on the forestry level around a reduction of stumpage on agriculture land in Fort Nelson came directly from our involvement linking the lack of agricultural growth to the over expensive stumpage policies that prevented land development here. So it was an agricultural argument that changed the stumpage regulation for us. So it's pretty awesome. So we can maybe make it.
Thank you, Councillor Souls. Admin report number 69, winter road maintenance to Andy Bailey Regional Park. Ms. Watson, I take it is not on the call.
So Jerry's going to speak to this one tonight.
Mr. Cavalier.
Good evening. September 14th, Regional Council directed staff to provide council costs to include winter road maintenance on the Andy Bailey Road to the regional campground. We've assumed some costs here and anticipated about $10,000 annually. If we rate it as a priority 4 road, which is the lowest priority, essentially means 72 hours after a snow event, that road would be cleared unless another snow event hit within that 72 hours which resets the 72-hour clock. And those costs would be borne both by monies in the rural roads contract, as well as some O&M costs out of the public works budget.
Thank you. Any comments, councillors? Very well. Councillor Gerling, did you want to make a motion then?
I do. I would like to make a motion that we set aside the $10,000 to maintain the winter road maintenance for the Andy Bailey Regional Park Road.
I would second that.
Moved by Councillor Gerling, seconded by Councillor Roper. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Admin report number 71, Fort Nelson Play School request for rent reduction. I believe this is an addition to our,
Mayor, sorry. I'm in
I'm sorry,
70s.
did I miss 70? I'm sorry. Admin report number 70, disposal of assets, recycling, sorting facility at the dump.
So, yeah, so we have two options available to council. The building has not been used in some time and either requires repair or disposal. And we've had our building inspector go through the building. It's structurally sound, but it does need some work if we intend to keep it. And it would make a good office for somebody in town if they chose to buy it. There is some significant costs to bringing it to building code. Specifically, the CSA sticker for the building is missing, so it'd have to be recertified. But it doesn't stop somebody from siting in on their property. So we'd like to dispose of it with provisions already laid out in the purchasing policy. If you
Thank you. Any comments, councillors? Very well, I'll ask for a motion then.
I'd make a motion for option one.
Second that. All right, Councillor Penny seconded that. All those in favor? Carried. Now, admin report number 71, Fort Nelson Play School request for rent reduction.
So council, the Fort Nelson Play School submitted a request in late August to reduce the monthly rent to a fee of $650 per month. Their agreement expired in April, though there was a waiver approved by council in the spring to extend rent relief through to the month of August. So basically for the summer months that they were closed. Similarly, that decision was made back in 2019. So for the past 2 years, they've had rent relief for the summer months. They're finding that the registration numbers are quite low, about 50% of their maximum, even as a result of limitations of COVID. They think that this is a result of just our kind of current community, so population, I guess demographics of families, and also to some degree affordability. So they've indicated that their primary goal is to keep their registration fees as low as possible, but in reality, the fees collected don't cover their costs. So to think that there could be some arrangement where rent is a factor of registration fees, it's largely what keeps their organization running annually is their fundraising efforts. And as we all know, fundraising suffers when an economy is in decline because there's fewer corporate donations and people just don't have the discretionary spending to buy raffle tickets and things like that, unfortunately. So in any event, there's some information there for council's reference just in terms of our other nonprofit tenants. So there was a pretty extensive look at leases back in 2015. There was an appraisal done to ensure that we were not competing with private landlords, commercial landlords, or that we were at least being equitable in our rates. But regardless, council resolved at that time back in 2015 that given the Play School being one of the tenants that offers a community service, there was good rationale to have a lower than market lease rate assigned. So there's quite a range in the lease rates. Obviously, in the table there, it shows, you know, kind of the nonprofit or community service organizations pay anywhere from 75 cents a square foot to almost $14 a square foot. And so to say that there's a really, you know, a good rule to follow, we don't really have a rule to follow. So it's up to council's discretion, honestly. I guess just from a practical perspective, I would just note that if a reduction is contemplated, that we just ensure that we're recovering enough to pay for the utilities, because their lease rates include utilities. So annually, over the past 4 years, they've been about $5,000 a year in utility costs of the $9,500 we collect in rent. So.
Does the Play School operate year round?
No, it's just on the kind of the school calendar. So it's September to April, basically.
So currently with their lease, are they required to pay 12 months rent?
Nope, it's gathered on a monthly basis.
It's okay. So it's monthly, and then we do charge them for the summer months, or no?
So for the past 2 years, we haven't. Just that was their request to council that was approved.
Okay, so when the lease comes up for renewal now, it will exclude those summer months? And in addition, they want $142 taken off their monthly rent, is that correct?
So they haven't asked for a summer waiver, but council may receive a similar request next year. It's hard to say. The contract is basically a clean slate at this point. So if council, if that's something that you want to entertain, is to write that in, that it would be based on a 8-month term annually.
What I would suggest is that we don't grant the $142 reduction, and that we simply do something to waive the fees for when they're not using it in the summer months. It seems to be not a very good idea to be charging people for space that they're not utilizing. And that would be actually a bigger reduction than the $142 that they're asking for. Does anyone have any comments? Councillor Goring.
Do we know if they have taken advantage of any of the opportunities offered by federal government COVID funding?
I'm not aware of any COVID funding. They do take advantage of the childcare operating program subsidy, which I think is it's like a wage subsidy for ECE workers, but that's it. And there was a commitment to explore, because there have been a number of other programs announced, even at the provincial level. So yeah, but I'm not. The thing with some of the commercial rents was that if there was no mortgage on the building, then there wasn't an eligibility. So we had thought about that when we were looking at rent reductions for our tenants in municipal buildings, but because the NRM doesn't hold mortgages on our facilities, we wouldn't have been able to apply or extend that benefit to our tenants. That was one of the unfortunate kind of.
Isn't there a wage subsidy program though? Like if you can prove that your revenue coming in has been substantially reduced because of that part of the wages could be, you could get funding to cover off part of the wages. And I think that the Play School could make the case that one of the reasons why the registration is lower is because people aren't as quick to send their kids to Play School in today's world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering if they've taken advantage of any of those opportunities, and if not, they might not have, because if they're an all volunteer board, would we have any capacity to help them through that process? Is what I'm thinking.
Councillor Roper.
That would be good to know, but at the same time, they're asking for a rent reduction. They might already be doing that wage subsidy if they qualify for it. I don't see the $142 as a big deal for us to reduce their monthly rent. I think it's pretty clear if we don't do something, we're not going to have a play school in Fort Nelson. And I see this being short term, especially with COVID right now. But I think if there's something that we can do for the social good of the community, for a community service, I think we should do everything in our power that we can. And I don't want to make it too complicated. They've given us a very simple ask. And I think that we should just go ahead and give them what they're asking for. It's not much.
So Councilor Roper, I guess I would ask the question, what would you like to see done with the rents in the summer?
I think they'll most likely come to us with an ask at that time. Perhaps things will improve by then. They might not need it. Perhaps it'll be the reduction plus a waiver of the fees for the summer months. I'm not 100% sure, but I'd like to treat them separately at this time, just to simplify the process. It's $142 a month. That's what it is.
Councilor Penny.
I'd just like to take back into what Mr. Guyver had said earlier about, I'm all for helping the play school as well. I just want to make sure that we at least cover the costs. So whatever that reduction would be, and whether we base it on an 8-month term, just so it didn't incur any extra costs to residents. So I don't know where that $142 falls in there, but.
Councilor Andrews.
Do we currently have a motion on the table?
No.
Well, then I would like to make a motion that we have the play school only cover utility costs until August 1st of 2021. At that time, we can relook at everything, and hopefully we're in a better time come then.
I'll ask for a seconder for that motion.
I'd second that.
Very well. So I believe they're going to enter into a new lease with the play school. Generally speaking, leases are not worded in a way that just simply covers utilities. It would be an estimate of what the utilities would cost, and that would be the lease. So I guess I'm asking for an amendment, a motion to amend that to comparable monthly fee that would reflect those utility costs. Councilor Roper?
Could we do something similar to what the Phoenix Theater has arranged? They pay an annual lease of $100.
First, we have to address this amendment to the motion. So
that's what I'm getting at, is that perhaps we could do a flat yearly lease of $100 plus utilities, and then that would have a cost associated with it.
So the amendment to the motion is, instead of saying utilities, then a dollar amount comparable to what those utilities are, and that's what the rent would be. So I'm going to ask for a seconder for that amendment.
I would second that one.
Seconded by Councillor Souls. So the motion is amended to reflect simply a cost to the play school of what the utilities are, plus $100 a year. Councillor Roper, go back to your discussion again.
Just relating the fact that we could just put a small yearly lease fee, the $100 plus utilities. I think that would cover us and cover them as well.
Okay, I think the utilities fees, because utilities are different every single month. Yeah. Generally, what happens is you take the yearly amount of utilities, you add it up, and you divide it into the months, so that what you're doing is you're billing for a dollar amount rather than a service amount. So I think we're getting to about the same place. Mrs. McIver.
My only comment is that the scenario that Councillor Roper is describing for the Phoenix works because the accounting is managed through the NRM, whereas the play school manages their own account. So the solution that you're proposing, they would pay an amount equivalent to the fee, would work in their situation, because although we pay the utilities, that would cover. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Versus we're paying them directly on behalf of.
All right, if there's no more discussion, I'll ask for a vote on that motion then, as amended. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. Permissive tax exemption bylaw number 187. Mr. Barry, did you want to speak to this?
I think Mr. Carter's on the line, I believe. Hey, Jeremy?
Mr. Carter.
Yeah. Oh,
There he is.
There I am. Good evening. So annually, council is authorized to, through bylaw, provide a permissive tax exemption. So there's a general tax exemption and a permissive for schools, hospitals, or sorry, schools and churches and nonprofits. So this was advertised in the paper, and we also put it up on our website for those that would like to apply. The requirement is it has to be adopted before October 31st for 2021. So we email that out to BC Assessment if there's a bylaw that's approved, and that gets registered for the 2021 tax year. So there is an attachment of the properties that historically have taken part in it. There's one new addition this year was the potential curling club. So we did receive some information from BC Assessment that they're looking at that leased space potentially being assigned a roll number. So we have, as a precaution, added them in there in case they're given a roll number after the October 31st deadline. We wanted to ensure that that didn't pop up. So they have been added this year.
Any comments? Councillor Souls.
Is there a exercise that actually goes through and to determine if all of these entities still exist every year, or is it something we just roll forward? The reason I ask here, I see the Elks Lodge Society there, and the Elks are no longer operating, they no longer have a building, and so it makes me wonder, is that one that should be there or shouldn't be there? Like, how does that work?
So these are all applications that are submitted by these organizations every year. So letters do go out at the beginning of the year stating that if they're interested in reapplying per year, they can. And so it isn't a requirement to own the building. A nonprofit organization that is triple net could apply for a permissive tax exemption. So as the curling rink doesn't own the rec center, they pay rent in there, and if it is a triple net situation, they could receive the permissive tax exemption.
How would it be a permissive tax exemption if they don't own a building? Like, connect the dots for me somehow.
In triple net, so that cost of property tax could be passed through to the leasee.
So in the case of the Elks Club, if they leased it to the XYZ electrical company, the Elks could still apply for a tax exemption, even though the company that is leasing the property is a for-profit company?
It'd have to be a nonprofit organization that receives it. They can rent it out to various user groups, but if the Elks is a nonprofit and they're applying on their own behalf and they're paying the property tax, they could, yes.
But in the case, if they lease that to a profit-making organization, then could the Elks still apply as a nonprofit organization receiving those rent revenues from a for-profit business? Could they still apply for that tax relief?
Within the
Go ahead, Jen.
application. Sorry, I was going to say within the application, you have to declare to what degree the percentage of property is being used for revenue purposes.
Okay.
So if you're a nonprofit that owns the building and say you have you're leasing space to a hairdresser, as long as you declare that, the calculation is done to determine what percentage would be exempt. And in all likelihood, you would pay full taxes on a percentage associated with the revenue and be exempt on the remaining that's being used for your charitable purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? Very well, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make that motion. Recommendation number 1.
Moved by Councillor Roper. Seconded by Councillor Dolan. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
911 service in the Northern Rockies, a letter of support from the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General. Do we need to do anything with this other than accept it?
No, Mayor, just received for information.
Very well. And speaking of information package for council, September 16th, 2020, council information package, September 23rd, 2020, council information package, September 30th, 2020, and council information package, October 7th, 2020, received for information. New business items, CAO additions. Fort Nelson First Nations geothermal request for a letter of support. Mr. Barry.
Hi, Mayor. Fort Nelson First Nations, after the agenda was published, they're still working towards their with their geothermal project, and they do have a couple of grant opportunities that they're applying for, and they're looking for a regional council letter of support. A couple of them, I guess, to support the 2 grant opportunities, one with Clean BC Communities Fund and the other with the Communities Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program. So they've reached out to us and asked if regional council would provide letters of support for those 2 applications.
Very well. Is there any comments on this? Councilor Roper.
I think it would be great to support that initiative. Absolutely.
Any other comments? Then, Councilor Roper, I will call that a motion, and I will ask for seconder.
Second here.
Seconded by Councilor Penny. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously as well. Mr. Barry, Northern Health meeting November 16th.
There were some challenges. We had a request out with Northern Health for a meeting during UBCM, and of course it never occurred at that time. There were some wires that got crossed between both parties, between us and them. So we circled back with them, and they've been able to provide a time for a virtual meeting on November 16th from 2 to 2:30. So letting council know, I don't expect you to have your calendars in front of you right now, but we'll provide just a heads up that we'll send some correspondence out to council here in the next couple of days. It's 2 to 2:30, so 2 in the afternoon, 2 to 2:30 on November 16th. So we'll just shoot our email reminder to council and confirm availability, and hopefully we'll lock that in for that date.
Thank you. Moving on, Fort Nelson Historical Society request for a general letter of support for the museum expansion project. Any comments, councillors?
Is that for like a grant?
I'd make a motion to support.
I'll
Sorry.
take that as a motion, and in a moment I will ask for a seconder, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Goring, you had a comment.
Was that like for a grant application, or what's the letter of support for?
It's for any future grant applications. So often you'll get a request for a certain grant program, but they thought it might be more efficient to just have a general letter of support that they can attach to any grant application.
Can I have a seconder for Councillor Andrews' motion? Councillor Penny seconded that motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Standing items for discussion, council reports. Are there any council reports?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Gerling.
So I attended the Trail Mix Run on September 19th, and this is an annual event that runners of all abilities look forward to each year. And hats off to everyone involved that made this event possible again this year. Faced with some very unique challenges around COVID, etc., Angela White and Krista Pearson, race organizers, continue to find a way to make things happen. So thanks to everybody who was involved in that. It was a great event. Kids, and yeah, it was a really good event. I attended the library board meeting on September 21st. They've recently expanded their opening hours to include Tuesday and Thursday evenings until 8 p.m. I did attend, I don't know if anybody else was able to attend in the events, presentations, and workshops with UBCM. The event organizers did an amazing job hosting the event, but that said, it was not without its glitches. That affected my ability to attend various events. And trying to attend the event over the course of 3 days really highlighted once again how the internet cap affects our communities. And by the end of day 2, I was over my monthly allotment, and I've never gone over. I barely even make 50%. And so I attended some of the sessions on day 3 here at the municipality. So I included that in my comments to UBCM. I don't know what it was, but how that whole thing, streaming thing happened, but man, it used a lot of my, whatever you call it. Bandwidth, that's the word. Thank you, Councilor Roper. So I'm waiting for my overage charges because I did go over, so I'll see what my bill's gonna be. Additionally, and the NCLGA presented a webinar following UBCM on September 30th, reviewing some of the various health resolutions that various communities have submitted over the years. This review really highlighted that many communities are struggling with healthcare situation in rural and remote BC. And October 2nd, I attended the Community Health Plan Steering Committee. The meeting notes will follow, and it's going to come into the council information package, so you'll get them always so that you're informed and up to date. I also attended on the 12th the second meeting of the NCLGA Rural Health Committee, so there's another health committee struck. There's been some personnel changes in this committee. The new chair is Corey Ramsey from the city of Prince George. And the committee is in its infancy, but I continue to be encouraged that by working together across North Central BC, we will influence the conversation at the very least. And October 8th, I attended the Fort Nelson Chamber of Commerce board meeting, and it was an in-person meeting for the first time in many months, and it was nice to get back to, you know, seeing, and it was at the community hall, social distancing and all of that. So yeah, that's my report.
Very well. Are there any other reports? The only report I have is I also attended the Chamber of Commerce annual general meeting and the community roundtable on Wednesday of this month. And it was good to get back to meeting with members of the community and looking at all the things that they're doing. There was a particular shout out to Krista Vandersteen by myself for all her work in doing the Halloween preparations for the Northern Rockies. And Ms. Vandersteen also joined me there, and a little discussion about the new NDIT programs that may benefit members of the community roundtable. All right, moving on. Standing items for discussions, strategic priorities, news media, questions and answer period. Are there any questions? Mrs. Vandersteen, please. That's all right. We are on the public, I believe. Public and news media. Go ahead.
I just wanted to take a moment and thank Mayor Foster for attending the Chamber of Commerce board meeting because he swore in my new board. So appreciate that. And
3 names to come yet.
yes, thank you. And I also just wanted to thank council for your consideration on the agenda tonight for the grant. I appreciate it.
Thank you. No other comments? Very well. I am going to ask for a motion to adjourn the public meeting. Resolution to temporarily adjourn the public meeting. I need to do the close first. I'm going to ask for a motion to move to a closed meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Roper, seconded by Councilor Souls. All those in favor? Carried. And I'm going to ask for a resolution to temporarily adjourn the regional council meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Roper, seconded by Councilor Souls. All those in favor? Very well. We are in a closed meeting.
No, that's okay.